the first Minds Meetup of 2026. We were kind of hit and miss last year, and we have a plan in place for this year. So we'll be holding a session every other month, starting here in February. Coming up in April, Taylor is going to be doing a session on accessibility and how it impacts the bottom line, interviewing Mark Miller. Is that right, Taylor?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through some Dynamics user group slides here because they are the ones who are making all of this possible for us. And we want to make sure that everyone knows who they are, and then we'll kind of jump into our content for today. See if I can operate my screens. So this is Doug, building community, encouraging connection, and empowering education. I personally can't say enough good things about the Dynamics user group and what they do for the community, what they have done for me personally at being exposing me to more people, getting to learn new things, and maintaining that it's a wide reach with that small town feel, if you will. It's a free community. There are multiple sizes of events that you can attend. And I'm probably going to hit this later in the slides. And I believe Bobby has a session coming up. It's not this session. It's not today's session, is it, Bobby? It's another time.
Or
on choosing the right size of event for you.
It is later today. It'd be kind of just after this ends, probably.
Okay.
And it'll be taped and out there as a collateral too. So if you're not able to catch it,
okay.
But yeah, I'll be talking about my experience and how to, look at each event and get the maximum value out of it, whether it's local, virtual, global.
Right. And I admit I'm a bit of a junkie. I like all of them. I enjoy the virtual, where I can sit in the comfort of my own environment and learn things. I like traveling. I'm on the committee for one of the regionals, where I travel and basically spend a day or two with with fellow users, in-person content. And then I also enjoy the big event at DynamicsCon and all of the fanfare that comes with that. And I typically speak at DynamicsCon, so I think that kind of helps ground me a little bit. But it is a fast-growing event. So that is Doug. Let me go through and see what else we have on the slides, because I know we have tons of stuff, because they are a busy group. Rules of engagement. And this is particularly important in a group about diversity. So let's keep it friendly, keep it professional. And if you do have an issue, if I've done something on this call that offends you, definitely reach out to Dynamics user group. Bobby is a representative. You can find contact information on their site. And likewise, if somebody else on the call does something and I don't address it, or if one of you happens to do something that really bothers me, I will do the same, and they kind of keep us all honest and in a friendly, professional format. So these are all of the different Doug programs. I am particularly focused on F&O and kind of professional skills. But they also host things for Business Central, CE, GP, Power Platform, and just recently added AI, because it is going to be affecting all of us. I'm going to leave this QR code on the screen here for a minute. And this will get you to the Meetup platform, which is online hosted meeting events. And it is what we use with Doug to create these events, whether it's in person or virtual. And you can, if you scan this QR code, it will connect you with all of the meetups that are available. You can search by region, interest, just about however you want to connect. This will get you to the information that you need. And the big event coming up in May, 3 months away. Speaking notifications just came out. Just found out that 2 of my sessions were accepted. Had the opportunity last week to visit the venue in Las Vegas, and it is incredible. If you can make it at all, I highly recommend it. It's going to be a ton of information. It's well laid out, and I think that it's still coming out. Bobby says that there are still announcements coming. So yeah, it promises to be bigger and better than ever. And then we also have our DynamicsCon regionals. So the Tampa Southeast has happened already. We've got one coming up next month in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver, California. We've got one in Denver, Colorado coming up in April. I'm gonna say Bobby's probably pretty involved with that one. In June, we've got Toronto. If I'm not mistaken, that one is kind of a, I don't want to say difficult to attend, but they've got limited space. So if you're close to Toronto and you want to go, definitely get in there and get registered.
Yeah, that's a Microsoft Office building that they require everybody be registered a few days in advance, and it is it's a hilarious building to get in and out of, just because of the turnstiles that you have to go through with a badge that then make your badge unusable for the next 30 minutes. So if you accidentally don't go in, it's just a hilarious cavalcade of fun. And over 2 days, and we had close to 350 people there last year, so expecting much of the same chaos, but a lot of learning. So yeah, get in there quick if you're on your way.
We have one in Ghana. If anyone is, I don't think anyone on our call today is international, but if you're wanting to travel. In August, we have my favorite one coming up here in the Ohio Valley. It happens here in Columbus. We were one of the first year they wanted to try out these regionals things. Those our Ohio user group leaders said, sure, why not? And it went really well. We've grown every year, and it has turned into one of my favorite parts of the year. One, because I generally get to sleep in my own bed, but I still have all of the camaraderie, the content of a big in-person event. And I really enjoy working with all of the other leaders and getting speakers in and trying to curate a day. It's typically 2 half days, a day of content that our users can really benefit from. One in Montreal in September, Germany and Europe, in October. I would love to make that one. Houston, Texas in November. And here is a QR code that can get you the information about all of the regionals. And again, if you have any questions, anything, you can, Bobby will be with us through part of the meeting today. So you can pop some things in the chat that he can help with. You can always send questions to me and I can get them to the Doug team, or you can jump on the Dynamics user group website and reach out to the team there, and they'll get any questions you have answered. So again, this is our first Diverse Minds meetup of 2026. And today our focus is going to be influence. So starting influence, turning your small actions into lasting change. And I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I want to open it up for conversation. I don't want this to be where you guys just sit and receive an information dump from me. But I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background of how I came up with this and why it's important to me, especially in today's environment where everything is so in your face, cancel culture, you have to believe this or else kind of environment that we're living in. I wanted to share this idea that we can still be effective without being controversial, if you will. So to start with, the definition of influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. And you'll see this definition kind of throughout. It'll be on your screen kind of throughout this as we go, because this is what I want to keep in mind. It's the ability, for me, influence is not drastically changing someone's mind. That would be great, right? If you could just kind of meet up with people, give them your spiel about what's important to you, and they would automatically go, oh, I've been thinking wrong all of this time. Or, yes, that fits with exactly what I'm doing. I'll do the same. That kind of format, that's not really what happens in the real world. Occasionally you have these big awakening moments because you've been influenced by something, but generally it's a much more subtle where you're impacted because you keep seeing small things repeatedly, and it's what gets you thinking and helps change your behavior or the little things that you do. And this is going to be the majority of my information today, is changes I've seen because of the small things that I do. Okay, introduction. So who am I? My name's Jody Cronk. I am a D365 ERP analyst for Airstream. We're in Jackson Center, Ohio, which is a very tiny, tiny town. And without Airstream, you probably lose half the buildings and half the population. I have been working with AX and Dynamics for F&O for about 15 years. Started with a 2009 AX 2009 implementation. Kind of shifted at that point from more of a finance inventory focus to system focus, mostly because I kind of knew how our system worked and was able to assist with getting all of that data out and into D365. And in that process, I learned a lot about how D365, or in that time AX, works. So that kind of got me involved, and I have turned that into a career. I still have struggled to think of myself as IT, although that's generally how I get classified. I don't know what I think of myself as, but IT is generally where I get classified. And I have been involved with the user group now for about 9 years. Not always with Dynamics user group, but just there's another entity out there that I'm sure most of you are aware of, that used to be very locally user focused. I don't find that to be true anymore, so I don't volunteer there. Doesn't mean they don't provide good content. It's just not the environment that I want to be involved in. So, but locally in Ohio, I've been working with the same leadership team. We've been together. Like I said, I joined them about 9 years ago. I graduated from the Ohio State University long, long time ago. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Humanities, and I majored in Women's Studies. And when I graduated college, I was going to set the world on fire, right? I was going to change people's minds. I was going to be a modern, outspoken feminist, and going to set the world straight, right? I was going to make all of this difference. And once I graduated, I got a full-time job. And I got married, and then I got divorced, and then I fell in love and got married again, and we built a house, and we had a son. And amidst all that, there are bills and student loans. I've been through lots of job changes, um, day-to-day responsibilities, cooking dinner, doing laundry, um, hobbies, just family. All of those things take time and they take energy. And I'm now 53 and a half. Most of the heat that I generate is mostly due to menopause. But it's still really important to me to be affecting change. And what I've done throughout all of this to kind of keep the flame alive is I've kind of stuck to my principles. If something makes me uncomfortable, I try to tell someone that makes me uncomfortable. I try to model the behavior that I would like to see. If there's someone in the office who insists on calling all the women honey, I try to dispel that just by every time they say that. I don't necessarily correct them because I don't want to be confrontational. I don't think that I'm going to have the same effect if I alienate people by constantly challenging their habits. But I do try to model the habits that I want to see. When I had a son, my husband's a construction worker, very manly man type person, and had a son, got to a certain age, he would cry, and first thing words out of my husband's mouth were, "Don't be a girl." And I said, whoa, 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 wait a minute here. What you just told him is that being a girl is bad. I'm a girl. And he just kind of looked at me and I said, look, you want to tell him don't be a sissy. And again, this is not necessarily how I would have handled it, but I'm a mom, he's a dad. You want to tell him not to be a sissy, not to be a baby. And that's actually the one that we landed on because it's gender neutral, if you will. But I explained to him why it bothered me, and he respected that because I didn't jump all over him. I didn't attack him with it. I just said, it doesn't work for me as someone who is interested and who's feels women's rights are something that is important, that you're using, uh, you know, don't be a girl in a negative way. And he said, okay. So again, we decided on if he was gonna chastise my son when he was crying unnecessarily, he would use the word baby. Just little things like that, things my dad would say, or even my mom. They're both now in their late 70s. They'll turn 80 later this year. They have certain habits, language that they're comfortable with, that and I know in my heart that they are not racist, sexist people. They're the ones who raised me. That I know who they are, but I would, maybe suggest to them, maybe that's not the word you want to use. Or again, model, a lot of it was modeling the behavior that I wanted other people to emulate. And that's kind of what got me through. Spend a lot of time, you find the right group, and you're able to discuss these things on a deeper level. I worked with a IT consultant at an earlier job who he was a little older than me, and he insisted on opening the door. Anytime we would be walking to or from a meeting, it was just his nature. And he told me one time, he said, I really appreciate how active you are in the meetings, how involved you are, how you're willing to challenge other people's ideas, but you don't get offended when I open the door for you. And what I was able to explain to him is he always treated me like an equal. It was ingrained in his training from the time that he was a young man that men open doors for women. He wasn't doing it because he was trying to reinforce those stereotypes. It was just his habit. And because he was respectful to me, when we were in meetings, he always listened to what I say. He never called me honey. I was willing to overlook the door opening, right? Because there's Bobby. I open doors for everyone. I do too. That's kind of who I am. I'm a helper. So that because I wasn't trying to make him feel bad for behavior that was natural to him, that was not offensive, right? He wasn't doing it because women needed to be put in their place. It was just a habit. One of my favorite quotes or comments came from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she was being interviewed and asked what was the best advice she got when she got married. And I want to say it was her mother-in-law told her that sometimes it's good to be, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember her exact quote. Sometimes it's good to be a little deaf. And I found that to be true. Like, you don't have to react to everything that you hear, especially if it's something that's out of character for someone that you're close to. You know that they don't really hold those opinions. Sometimes stuff just slips out, but that was her advice, is sometimes it helps to just be a little deaf and not hear some of those things. And it kind of also goes to one of my other favorite thoughts methodologies is pick your battles. You don't have to fight every battle that comes across your screen, your environment. So that's what I've done. I've tried to influence where I can. Obviously, I raised a son. I raised him with the idea that mom and dad are different, but neither is less valuable. He's 25 years old. I'm very proud of the man that he's become. He's, I don't know, everything that I could hope for. But that also goes back to one of, and I'll change my slide here. This is one of my stories about influencing. I have 3. They're fairly quick. Oh, there we have influence again, the capacity to have an effect on character development or behavior of someone or something. So stories about influencing. First one is my son. At some point in his high school career, he got into listening to conservative radio. And I don't care. I want him to, you have to be exposed to both sides of an issue before you can really figure out where you land on it. But he started using the term feminazi. And he came home from school one day and that word came out of his mouth. And my husband's face just, one of those, holy cow, you're about to just get rained upon. And I said, so where'd you get that word? What do you think it means? Because exploding on him as a teenage boy was not going to do me any good. Mom's just being crazy, right? I'm just proving the point. So he talks about, and I just completely lost his name, the radio host who kind of coined the phrase. He's gone now, but he and I said, so what does that mean to you? And he told me, what feminazis were. And I said, well, so I'm a feminist. And he kind of looked at me. I said, Grandma's a feminist. And you could start to see the disbelief on his face. Aunt Angie's a feminist. Are we feminazis? Well, no, we're not. Because being a feminist is not a negative, but what you get and what this particular radio host was talking about is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the more noisy, outrageous, over the top end of the spectrum that you are, the more chances are you're going to get media coverage. But the truth is that in your life, your inner circle, there are 3 feminists who don't meet that definition. So maybe it's not a word you should use. And he thought about it. And whether he quit using it altogether, I don't know, or whether he just quit using in my presence, doesn't matter. He was a teenager, and I don't believe that I know that it's not a belief that he holds today. His girlfriend is a very outspoken diversity champion. She would never tolerate it, and would never be a little bit deaf about it either. So I'm relatively comfortable that my approach in not being the radical set the world on fire person that I thought I would be when I graduated from college still had significant influence on my son and how he sees women. So that's the first story. The second story is involves my husband. And like I said, he is a construction worker, got into the inspection area of construction, and ended up being a manager over a group of inspectors and case managers. And he was at a position where it was time to hire another case manager. And he had several people apply, and it came down to 2 people. One was a person that male, white, history in the construction industry, and great qualifications. The other person was female, of color, great background in case management, and one of his contemporaries said, well, they're exactly the same. How are you going to decide? And he said, but that's not true. They're not exactly the same. I'm going to offer the position to the woman because in my mind, she doesn't have a construction background. So she brings different things to the table. She's a she, that brings different things to the table. As a woman of color, there's in my mind, things are not equal. She is clearly the superior candidate because, and this is, I don't want to offend anybody, in his words, I know what a fat white guy thinks. I am a fat white guy. I want a different perspective. The team has to grow. We have to be able to see things from a different lens. And I can't take full credit for that. He spent years working for the city of Columbus, which is very progressive about promoting diversity and teaching management and leadership skills that do the same. So, like I said, I can't take full credit, but I do like to think that I had some influence there. And if you ask him, he'll tell you that, right? That he has been greatly influenced by living with me. When he comes home from work with a problem, I present a different point of view, a different perspective, that has kind of helped him shape who he is and has grown to a much more well-rounded person, in my opinion. And I think you would get that from most people. I don't have a picture handy. He's a big guy, flat top, big bushy beard. If you saw him, you would think biker, conservative, right? Those would be your first thoughts based on initial. Once you talk to him, you understand that he is not that person, right? He's much more welcoming, and interested in people, regardless of background, gender, color, any of that kind of thing. And then my last story about influencing, it kind of being the source of influencing, is I was home at Christmas this year. Like I said, my dad is 79, and he is a Vietnam vet. He still lives within 20 miles in the same rural community of where he was born. But he had this daughter who left home, went to the big city, got a college degree, and came home with all of these ideas. There was a letter to the editor in the local newspaper, and there was a father and his daughter who walked into a local craft store, and the person behind the counter said, "How are you guys doing today?" And the father at that point made a big deal about the fact that the employee used guys, implying that somehow that his daughter was male. And while I have my own opinions about that type of language in casual use, that's a whole separate issue. But what my biggest win was, exactly, Bobby, is that my dad said to me at 79 years old, retired Vietnam vet, lives in a rural community, said to me, "How do we encourage people to use the word folks more often? Because that's the better word to use, right? Why does everyone get called guys? Half the population is women." So that was a big win for me. And we had a conversation about it, I think, again, I have my own opinions about the word guys. I had one of my favorite women's studies professors use the word guys. She actually wrote it up on the board one time. She wrote it really big. She said, "This is a very important feminist term, guys." And part of what it was is she was calling attention to her own, and I want to call it laziness, because I don't think that it is. It's a habit, and until something happens that really, until it really upsets someone who's close to you, and then you really make an effort. Anyway, again, that's a little deeper than I want to go for this session, but I had an influence, right? And then the last story that I want to tell is about being influenced. And we have to learn from each other. And I like to learn from people who don't make me feel bad about habits that I have. So we have on the call Taylor Dorward. We'll hear more from Taylor not next month, 2 months from now in April, but he has vision impairment. And I never gave much thought to what my slides look like, using alternate text, because I like lots of colors. I like fancy fonts. I'm a pretty creative person. And if I did those things, that was just me expressing me. right? And alternate text, I didn't worry about. But did you want to add something, Bobby?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I do have to jump off, and I just wanted to emphasize something you said about influence. And as a male, oftentimes in a room of, conference room with, sometimes not fat old white guys, but a lot of white guys, older, gray haired,
Yep.
or, generally non-diverse. And I found that, and it kind of goes into what we were saying before. I'm just going to scroll back so I can get it right. Um, Being a little deaf, I like the silence. So if somebody made an inappropriate comment in the middle of the room, instead of derailing the discussion points or whatever, if I was leading the meeting, I would just stop and stare at the person just to give them a moment to feel uncomfortable and then move on. And I found that over the course of a few meetings, people stopped doing that in my meetings.
Yes.
So it was a non-issue. They may have on their own and behind closed doors continue to proceed with conversation that I wouldn't agree with. But at the end of the day, those comments stopped in my meetings, and I felt like that was a good way to. Now behind the scenes, I might go back and say, "Hey, Joe, I would appreciate you not making those comments anymore in meetings. They don't do anything to support what we're trying to accomplish, and they don't do anything to uplift the people you're talking to." So, you know, but
Right.
that was a behind the scenes conversation for me. But in the meeting, I just felt like a stop. And it was like, Joe, are you done? Cool, we can get going again. And then just not even acknowledge the fact that they were joking or whatever it was, whatever, inane comment that I felt,
Right.
wasn't supporting somebody. I just moved on. Sometimes you did have to speak up. Sometimes I did speak up immediately. If it was way over the line, I would speak up and say, hey, we don't
Yeah.
need to go there.
And I almost hate to use this as an example, but you catch more flies with honey, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can and if you can convince someone to change their behavior without offending them, that change is much more likely to stick. My parents used to have it goes back to a 70s thing. It was a trivets that had funny sayings and stuff on them, and they hung in your kitchen. My parents used to have one that said tact, the ability to tell a man to go to hell and make him feel happy to be on his way. And I've kind of tried to emulate that as well, right? Calling people out publicly and making a big deal about it. Now, where you said where you kind of pause, you can subtly let people know that it's behavior you're not comfortable with without making a scene, I guess. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, right? There are times where absolutely a scene is warranted, and you have to damn the torpedoes and make your stand. I'm just talking about in everyday, the people you come across, the people that you hang out with, that I think you can have more influence. Thanks for joining us, Bobby. We'll see you soon. You can have that influence without alienating the recipient. And back to my stories about being influenced. I got the opportunity to meet and spend time and work with Taylor, and I thought, I don't have to experience, or I don't have to display my creativity on my slides, because that's not what the slides are for. The slides are there to convey information. They're there to give a basis, a reminder after the event. During the event, they're there to kind of keep the audience on focus of what we're talking about. And I absolutely can make them simpler, use a clearer, plainer font, um, spend the time to make sure that my alternate text is descriptive, so that someone who might be looking at this presentation later using a screen reader or some other kind of technology is getting the same experience as someone who can visually experience the pictures. And that they're having that same impact for them. So that is a story about, and Taylor has never confronted me about any of my slides. I've never seen him confront anyone about their presentation. He has always offered to be a sounding board, to review people's presentations, to give feedback, and be a collaborator rather than a policeman, if you will, or a gatekeeper. And I really appreciate that. And because of that, I want to do things the way he would want them done, because of the respect. So what do I have on my last slide here before we switch to conversation? Because I want to hear what you guys think. This is kind of what I want to be the takeaway, is that if you approach every situation, diversity, that your goal is to share and learn, the change will happen. And that's been my experience, 53 and a half years. And I've learned that when I approach with it, that I'm sharing my opinion and I'm trying to learn from someone else, the change is much more permanent, and much more ingrained. So, what do you think? What's everyone's? I've seen some comments, some of the chat going on. A lot of it is habit and awareness. Kate, that is, I think, aware. If once I'm aware of something, I make the effort to make the change. And what I would hope is that whoever it is that made me aware is patient while I make that change. Because that's the other thing that I try to do as well, is if someone's trying, they get a lot more opportunity. So we're a small group. Everyone can come off mute. I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, Jody, I guess I can start, but well, first, thank you for those really kind words. It's always great to see people who appreciate what we do for the community. So thank you a lot for that. And I think I just realized I'm not on camera. Want you to see me while I'm talking to you. But you made a point throughout your presentation that a lot of people tend to talk about, but no one really kind of hammers it in. And so I love that you kept coming back to it, and that's approaching these conversations with compassion and as an opportunity to learn together instead of criticizing the way someone's speaking or acting. Because it's just human nature. If we feel attacked, we're going to get defensive. So approaching those conversations with compassion and calmness can really help get your message across. Because even if you're 100% right, if you start by attacking them, and even if you seem calm, but if your language is harsh and they feel attacked by your words, they feel like they need to be defensive and aren't going to be as receptive to your suggestion. So I think that was a great point, and I'm glad you reiterated it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I want to don't think that I don't go to my own private circle, echo chamber, sounding board group of friends and go, oh my God, you will never believe, right? Because I still have those reactions. I just don't have them in front of people because it doesn't help my cause.
Yeah, and it can be nice to have that kind of outlet of stress, kind of like screaming into a pillow type of thing.
Yeah, screaming into that's a great screaming into your pillow. Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments? I won't make you talk. I can't make you talk. You, you can just disconnect. But anyone to add to the conversation? Anyone want to say, oh my God, you're completely wrong? I think completely differently.
I appreciate this conversation so much. I'm not able to come on camera. I'm actually at I'm at a conference for the blind. We are a
Awesome.
huge merchant service provider for different agencies, so that employ the blind. So that's actually where I am. So lots of service dogs here, and it's all I can do to let them work and not play with me. But I appreciate this conversation so much because, like as I said in the chat, awareness, just knowing. I mean, we are just moving the needle and creating this awareness around some of these sensitive words that are so commonplace for people that are well-meaning, right? And I think that's where that grace and compassion comes in of, the heart of this person. If they say something offensive, it's because we're still making the change. We're still raising the awareness and we're still in the process of it. And I hope we're never out of the process of it. But I just to know, I certainly have said, "Hey guys," before, and not put a gender on it. Is just a greeting, But now that I am aware, I won't do that anymore. But it's just being aware of what you say that could be construed in a way that is offensive, because it's the last thing I want to be is offensive, especially in my greeting. So I more of this. I love this conversation. Thank you for leading it.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time to join us.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss it. I'm on an expo floor, but was like, let me put in an earbud and hang out with some of my favorite people, because this is really good
Awesome.
stuff we need to be talking about.
And Kate, I want to hear more about that conference. I didn't know they had conferences for the blind. People have been keeping me out of the loop.
Yeah, I will certainly share more information. We have been attending this conference for, I think we counted up 15 years now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so outside of Business Central, we have just a merchant service solution that is integrated into some some other technologies for the blind, with like stocking, retail space, just where we just have some very cool things going on in the accessibility world. And we're actually here, you'll know the name of this company. We're actually here with Cargus, because of some of their accessibility capabilities within Business Central. So we are sharing a booth space with them here and showing UST Pay and Cargus solutions integrated all together. So we're kind of here on both sides of the fence with ERP and with just merchant services. It's so cool. It's like worlds collide.
Nice. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I'll say, Kate, going back to so working in manufacturing, I'm also used to often being the only woman in the room. And so to say, hi guys, isn't offensive. But I have also noticed over my last 9 years of attending conferences and kind of being in that manufacturing space, there are a lot more women, which makes me happy, right? That more
Right.
women are getting involved. So I am trying to retrain myself to use a different word, and it's taking time.
Right.
It doesn't happen all at once. And when I slip up, I try not to be too harsh with myself, because it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, it's just awareness. and is being self-aware and accountable for the words that you're saying. And then reframe. I love peeps. I use peeps. It's such a playful, it's like,
It
oh,
is.
hey, Pete. Like, it's such a playful solution. And there's so many other words that you can put in the place of, hey guys. But here's a question, like safe, brave space. Is it offensive if a woman says it, or is it offensive if a man says it, or is it just offensive? So
That's
if
a
I were
good
to walk into a
question.
room and say, hey guys, or if Taylor, I'm going to use Taylor because he's, I know him. If you were going to walk in the space and say, hey guys, is one more offensive than the other? Or is it just, I'm never using the word guys again in my life, but that's just a curiosity that I have. Does it matter? Anyway,
For
not that it
me,
matters.
I would say it's something being offensive can be subjective, so I would just say it's more inclusive to say gender neutral greetings. Inclusive language is incredibly helpful to have, but like Jody was saying, we all make mistakes, but just understanding where you can improve and realize you're not perfect, but making the effort is the best part. But yeah, it can be subjective and not just in that one context with a lot of
Right.
other accessibility and DEI topics as well. But it's just, I would say it's just more inclusive to use gender neutral greetings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Because honestly, there are I've worked with, like I said, a lot of men over the years, and you can take the same language from one that doesn't bother me. I'm not offended. It doesn't give me any pause. And you take that exact same language from someone different, that just sets my nerves on edge. So I think if everyone, like you said, Taylor, focusing on gender neutral language is much more inclusive, um, and just a better way to go.
Yeah, like for example, if you're talking to a room with 5 men in it and you say, hey guys, that's not going to be offensive because they are guys. So it's
Right.
not inherently offensive, but it's just more inclusive because maybe there's one man in that room that doesn't identify as a man.
Exactly. And I don't have to know that to use that gender neutral. That's the other thing. I don't have to know
Yeah.
that to use that gender neutral language. I did go through this slide deck to make sure that everything had alternate text, but I am trying to do that with every slide deck that I do, regardless of what it's for. Not just because I know that it is going to be, I want to make my behavior universal, regardless of my audience. So universally inclusive, regardless of who my audience is. And it's a work in process, right? It's I just noticed, Taylor, we're wearing very gender specific colors.
Oh.
We're on my screen, we're both at the top.
Oh.
And I'm in pink and you're in blue.
I didn't even think about that. I threw this on like last minute. I was like, oh, this actually kind of looks good. I like this.
Yeah. It shows up well on camera. Exactly. Yeah. I try to wear things that have a little bit of color because my hair is gray. And so if I wear something that's white or super light colored, then I just kind of like wash out. So the things that we've become aware of since COVID and so much virtual stuff.
Yeah, like I've started to make sure I have a lighter background because I realized in recordings when it was black, it made me look bald.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so unless anyone has anything else they want to add, I'm going to go ahead and kind of close us off. This is the last, official slide that I have. because I wanted it to end in conversation. Because again, the goal is awareness and sharing and learning. All right. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. I know we've had a couple that had to duck already, and I totally get that. I know a lot of times I register for a meeting just to make sure that I get notified of the recording afterwards, just because the schedule gets busy and full. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. And there she is.
Hi, I ran up to